Hi, this is Carl Rust, and I've worked in schools for over 30 years. I've learned a lot about how people learn, and I wrote a book called Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn: How We Can Transform Schools and Reintroduce Natural Learning. Hey, everybody, welcome to Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn podcast number 7. Can you believe we've done this 7 times already? So today, in my little segment, What's Happening? I'm going to tell you about a phone call I got last Thursday, actually. Phone rang. I looked at my phone. It was my old boss. I said, oh, wonder what he wants. Assistant superintendent in charge of something. Anyway, he said he wanted to know if I was interested in taking a position as a teacher of a split class, split between third and fourth graders, high ability kids. And I thought, 14 kids in the class. I had done some subbing last year and maybe the year before in the 5th and 6th grade class that's at the same school. So this is the top kids in the city, according to testing. And it was very tempting. For one reason, they wanted me because they know who I am, and they called me. And they know some of the things that I believe in, although they don't completely understand everything. But it would be an opportunity to start with a group of kids at the beginning of the year and work with them all the way through. And a small group and a mixed age group, which is kind of interesting. So it gives me a chance to try some things and to try to prove to some more people that some of the things that I talk about in my book and in this podcast really work. So I scheduled a meeting. I went in the next day to talk to assistant superintendent and the director of high ability and had some questions, and we talked a little bit. It seems like it'd be a remarkable opportunity. In addition, I did say to them, previously I was working with behavior kids, so-called, kids that struggled with behavior, and now you're asking me to work with high ability. So again, it's kind of a little silo. Let's put Rust in a little silo. He can work with these kids because they're high ability. He can work with these kids because they're behaviorally challenged, but I can work with any kids, anywhere. And I think the things that we talk about in this podcast, and I hear other people talking about in other places, will work with anyone. But it gives me a small group. I'm not getting any younger. It's harder for me to chase around 25 or 30 than it is to chase around 14. And it also gives us a little more room in the classroom to do some things just because of physical space. So I've been thinking a lot about what the first couple of days are going to look like. So we start August 17th, which is about 2 weeks from today. Actually, it's exactly 2 weeks from today. So what am I going to do those first couple of days? So I have kids coming in that are former second graders and former third graders. And the second graders have been in regular classes. They have not been in any high ability classes. So what am I going to do? How do you start with a group of kids that don't know about freedom? They don't know about self-direction. They're pretty much used to being told what to do. So I have 2 different thoughts on this. One is you can just start with a blank canvas. You can start with kind of an empty room and you can say, we're going to build a community together. And here's our room. What are we going to do with this room? How are we going to arrange the furniture? What furniture are we going to have? Or you could start off a little more structured, have some things set up, have a little bit of a schedule made, And it's like I've said before, there's nothing wrong with having a schedule. There's nothing wrong with having an agenda, things you want to present. That's fine. It's just also being open to the needs and ideas and interests of the younger learners that you're working with. So I still have some thinking to do. And one of the things I'm going to do at the beginning of each podcast is kind of share with you what's happening. Is it working out? Is it not working out? What are the conflicts? What are the challenges? What are the successes? And the other interesting piece of news is that I also working with local charter school, and I'm going to be working with some staff development over there, and that all yet has to be worked out as well. So, interesting things going on. Today, we're going to talk about compliance and coercion. The chapter in my book, chapter 7, does coercion and compliance lead to good citizenship and a happy life? So here's my little story to start off the chapter. There is going to be a battle in the cafeteria today, and everyone knows it. Tina loves to wear her hood over her hair in lunch. And Miss Massey, the assistant principal, is going to tell her to take it off. Tina is just coming back to school after a 5-day suspension from the last time she told Miss Massey very rudely and profanely that she was not going to take her hood off, that Miss Massey was not her mother, and that Miss Massey couldn't make her take it off no matter what she did or said. Tina relishes these battles while Miss Massey dreads them. Tina doesn't mind days off school because her mom has to go to work, so Tina can lay on the couch and watch TV, surf the net, and even go outside if it's nice enough. School is boring anyway. Miss Massey can't seem to figure out how to avoid the battle of wills. So here's a predictable conflict that everyone in the school knows this is going to happen. And I mean, there are some solutions to the problem, but the point, I guess, boils down to, why are we trying to make Tina take her hood off? Why are we trying to coerce her into compliance? And I picked this particular rule because schools battle this one every day. Hoods and hats off. I didn't need to do a little more research into that. But I don't think there's a real reason. It's more of a cultural war thing. Older people think it's disrespectful to wear a hat or a hood indoors. Younger people don't have that cultural thing, for the most part. Some kids aren't interested in wearing hoods or hats, and some kids want to. So it's a battle all the time. I had it when I did my 6th grade long-term subbing thing. I had it when I did my 5th grade long-term subbing thing. Kids getting ready to go to the cafeteria. Okay, don't forget, you have to take your hoods off. I didn't fuss with them in the room. If they wanted to have a hood or a hat on, I didn't fuss with them. But I knew as soon as they hit the hallway, it was going to be an issue. So at school, we take away many human rights from children in the name of order. Is it worth it? Some children don't mind complying with orders. They're fine with that. We call it following directions, just like we're making a cake or, reading the directions on the new toy that we bought. Okay, we got to follow instructions. Although we know what happens as adults, we try to figure it out, and then if we can't figure it out, we go look at the directions. So kids come to school at 5 years old or even younger, full of curiosity and questions. They want to know why things work. They want to know, why do we do that? Why do we do this? Why all the time? And that kind of gets beat out of you in school because we want order. We don't want to ask anybody asking why. Okay, everybody line up in ABC order. Why? Because I said so. I mean, there isn't any real reason for it. It's order. It's trying to maintain order. So we tell kids to be successful at school, you have to comply with what other people want you to do. To be successful, you must kowtow to authority figures instantly, with no question and no complaint. Today, class, we're going to read a play by William Shakespeare. Oh, I hate William Shakespeare. Too bad, we're reading it anyway. Where does that get us? What if instead of instant compliance, we helped children develop their natural questioning skills? Can we help them politely, intelligently, logically question authority? Aren't we better off if we do this? Do we want children growing into adults who don't ask questions, who do what they are told instantly without thought? I've often said you can break children down into 3 groups, and this applies to a lot of situations. You have kids that just comply, and they don't mind it. They're fine. They follow the rules. Tell me what the rule is, I'll follow it. Probably if you told them to sit in their chair upside down, and they'd do it. Then you have kids that don't really like it that much, but they don't want to cause any trouble, so they just quietly go along with whatever it is. And then you have a group of kids that question authority, complain, argue. It seems like they just drive the adults crazy because they seem like they argue about everything. You know, even though those first 2 groups, the kids that just comply with everything because they like it, and the kids comply because they don't really want to cause a fuss, they seem to be successful, while this group up here tends to either, they get in trouble, they get suspended, the parents get called, that kind of thing. But really, is the system really good for the first 2 groups? The group that just complies without question because they like it? Is that what we want? Or do we want people just not saying anything? Okay, just tell me what to do. I'm not going to be very enthusiastic about it, but I will go along with what everybody else is doing. Is that what we want? Or do we really want people that question authority? Now, this group can be very rude, very loud, very disruptive. So maybe those are the things that we need to help them with. Can you question authority in a polite way? I think so. So, for those groups of kids, when they grow up, become adults, are they going to have a happy life because of the choices they made? Automatically. Just because they complied with authority doesn't mean you're going to have a happy life. James Comer, a doctor and education reformer, points out in his book, Leave No Child Behind, Preparing Today's Youth for Tomorrow's World, that our current system was based on needs of the machine age, and that not all students were successful in the system, and even fewer students today will thrive under the system. Quotation, quote, today even fewer will sit and take in what they often consider to be irrelevant information when there's so many exciting opportunities for learning outside of school. Also, we send a double and confusing message. We praise children for being active learners and expressive people outside of school, yet expect them to be docile learners inside. So even when you grow up, if your job requires that you follow orders, no questions asked, in your professional life, in your work life, do we want people to carry that over into their citizenship roles? Do we want people to get involved in politics, asking questions? Do we want people to participate in voting, talking, going to candidates' debate, asking questions? What do we want from our electorate? Just blind obedience? I am a member of this party, so I will blindly follow what this party says. Is that what we want from our citizens? I think some of the leaders are perfectly happy with that. They don't really want people to ask questions. They don't really want people poking around in the corners trying to find out what's going on. Jerry Mintz points out in his excellent book, School's Over, that children often act out with extreme behavior just so they won't lose their own identity. He writes, quotation marks, sometimes they pour so much of their energy into fighting authority figures that they almost can't hear what the authority figures are saying to them. They just know they don't want to accept it because it is coming from the enemy. Interesting, unquote. So, in school, we have an us versus them mentality. It's the kids versus the staff members. In some cases, not. Like I said, we have different groups of kids. So different groups of kids feel differently about it. Different staff members feel differently. We're all individuals. But there's kind of this us versus them. It's a battle. Who's going to win? Are the kids going to get to have fun? Or are the adults going to get massive amounts of learning? And I would say this conflict is destructive to the educational, the learning process. Because although even in conflict there's learning, this is the other thing that I think we really can lose sight of if we're not careful. No matter what we do, we're creating learning. We may be sending messages such as, your opinion doesn't matter, you're powerless, you have to do what you're told, shut up, sit down, and do your work. Or we could send messages like, you're an interesting person, you have a good point of view, you have a right to an opinion. Go back and find out do some research on that topic and come back to me. Those are different opportunities we have for learning, but it's all going to be learning. The other thing that could happen is the younger people can hear the older people saying, we don't like you, you're crazy, you're destructive. Instead of that, the older people could be saying, you're valuable, I want to hear what you have to say, I'm interested in you. It's all going to be learning. So what kind of learning environment do we want to create? One of fear and authority figures, or one of love, compassion, and community? So that's something to think about when we get into these situations with the power struggle. And do we really listen to what people are saying to us, the younger people? I remember several situations when I heard younger people saying things to adults that were absolutely true, but they were being profane, they were being rude, and that turned off the adults' ears, just like Jerry was talking about the kids' ears kind of turning off. When kids get really loud and disrespectful, adults tend to stop listening. Well, how about really listening to what somebody's saying and thinking about it? Do they have some good points? First of all, what are they trying to say? And is it true? And if I don't think it's true, what evidence do I have that it's not true? So many people come out of school feeling inferior, feeling that their opinion doesn't matter. They don't have any power. So we tell children if they follow directions, stay out of trouble, get good grades, graduate, go to college, get a degree, have a good life. But is that really true? Are we telling them the truth? Or is it more about if you're a thinking person, if you are willing to work hard, if you're willing to show initiative, if you don't wait for the rest of everybody else to make up their mind. You see something that needs to be done, you do it. What kind of behavior in younger years could lead to good outcomes as older people? And we talked last time about testing and how their studies show that predictions of future success is past success. So if we can start when they're young in school and start building on successes, more success, and also teaching them that failure is a good thing because we pick out why did we sit back and we think, why did we fail? What happened? What are we going to do differently next time? Not give up. Okay, move on to the next lesson. So I also write in my book, in conventional schools, peace and quiet are vastly overrated. That seems to be one of the major goals in conventional school. Can we get it to be calm and quiet? And I understand that. I like it to be quiet sometimes. But to keep a child's brain active and growing means keeping them engaged in activities that they value, even if it's a conflict. This may mean some degree of noise and confusion. Look at groups of adults. What happens when you get a group of adults together working or planning or just socializing? Is it quiet? Does everybody sit down? Even if you go to sometimes it's annoying because you go to a play and you can't, even then sometimes adults aren't quiet. Or you go to I suppose a sporting event is different because everybody's yelling, yeah! But even a meeting, it's hard to get people to sit down and be quiet. So in our new economy, people need to forge a path in life that may include a traditional job, but may also include side jobs, a gig economy, starting their own business, working in a non-traditional business setup. How do we help kids? So does compliance to coercion help you in those situations? Not really. Why are schools so afraid of disobedience, non-compliance disagreements? Again, I think it's we like peace and quiet, especially schooly adults like peace and quiet. We're afraid we'll lose control and that things would just go crazy. I think that's an irrational fear, although a little bit of that may happen. Why should there be a penalty if children opt out of activities that we have so meticulously planned for them? So you plan this great thing. You think, oh wow, I'm going to make this really cool thing. The kids are going to love it. And some will love it. Some don't want to do it. What does it hurt to let the ones that don't want to do it sit out? Does everybody have to do it? What if the very thing we insist that they do, compliance to coercion, actually lowers performance on assessments? What if our insistence on compliance is actually a barrier to learning? So let's say I planned some fun spelling games leading up to a spelling test. 10 kids opt out all week. I give the test on Friday and I get similar results to any other time. Similar to when I have tried to get everybody to comply. Does that mean I wasted my time designing the activities? Could I have kids opt out, develop their own strategy? Or could I let them choose their own words? Or could I allow them to do what they want and put the activity out as a possible something that they could do? We're so wrapped up in getting kids to do what we think is optimal that we miss opportunities to engage with students in authentic learning and decision-making opportunities. So I guess here's the bottom line. Does compliance to coercion lead to a happy life? I would say it's not guaranteed. And I would also say that it's probably somewhat the opposite. I would say no. Nurturing and allowing the development of individuals is the correct way. That's going to lead to a happier life because I feel better about myself. I've been validated in my choices. I practice decision making. I realize that failing is a learning opportunity. It's not the end of the world. And when you go out in real life, if you're used to not failing, you're going to be in for a rude awakening because, or else you just never try to do anything. You just go in, punch your clock, do your work, come home, but you're still going to run into failing. And if you don't learn how to deal with failure, that's going to be a detriment. So 3 suggestions for things you can do at your school, your local school, your classroom, whatever you're doing. Here's some things you can try. Number 1, encourage children to ask questions and train adults to answer them in a respectful way, or direct children to sources so they can answer their own question. Number 2, if a child has a complaint or challenges a procedure or rule, don't treat it as a discipline issue or as an annoyance. Give the child a response based on logic, and if possible, find a compromise or consensus of all affected people, adults, and children. So in other words, there's a rule that says you can't run in the hallway. And somebody's running in the hallway, and you say, stop running in the hallway. Why? Why is that a rule? So, of course, you'd say for safety reasons, although that may not be true. But if somebody steps out of their doorway and you're coming running along, you may run into them. Then somebody can get hurt. But you can also bring a group together and say, let's talk about this with a whole bunch of people. Why do you think we should we run in the hall or not? First of all, let's decide this. And secondly, why are we coming up with whatever we decide to do? And then in a Agile Learning Center, they have small changes for short time. So you try it for a week and then come back together. Did that work? Number 3, give students a major role in decision-making process. Give the people most affected by decisions a way to influence those decisions. So again, we want to develop the brain. We want to develop all these abilities to be a social, responsible, caring adult. And here's opportunities everywhere we look. And compliance to coercion actually defeats this. If we teach kids that their opinion doesn't matter, that they have nothing to say, they can't ask questions, they can't question authority, we're doing them a big disservice. Well, thanks a lot. Hopefully I'll be coming back to you in the coming weeks and letting you know how the class is going. We've got exactly 2 weeks from D-Day. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified when each time a new episode comes out. Check out my book, Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn, How We Can Transform Schools and Reintroduce Natural Learning. A couple podcasts I recommend are Liberated Podcast with Carrie McDonald and Fair the Free Child with Akilah Richards. Check out my band, The Rush Show, at therushshow.com and all streaming platforms. Thanks for listening, and remember, get out of the way of learning. This has been Get Out of the Way and Let Kids Learn podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe, follow, share, and leave a comment.